Hey everybody, Don here. In this episode of The Naturalist, this will be part 2 of making maple syrup in Ohio. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through the various steps involved in evaporating maple or black walnut sap down into syrup and talk about each of those processes along the way and sample the end product at the end. So let's go. In this segment, I'm back in my kitchen. I had no idea in this series that I would be in my kitchen so often, but this is the second time and probably not the last. So, if you recall, the tapping episode, we ran our hoses into these 7-gallon water containers. Okay, and they just sat there for, let's see, I just let them sit for basically about 8 or 9 days, actually. The weather sort of fluctuated. Early on, the flow was fairly slow, but so I just let them sit and picked them up about, again, 8 or 9 days after tapping. So the sugar maple trees that we tapped each of them filled this container, okay, in that period of time. The black walnut tree, okay, we only tapped one black walnut tree. It only gave us about 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons of sap. All right, so what I've decided to do is just simply boil that down today in the kitchen, where normally you would finish your maple syrup. Okay, you would take it off of your evaporator, whatever setup you have, and do the final finishing on a stove. But we're just going to do the black maple sap right here on the stove today. Okay, so let me show you what I have here in front of me. First of all, this pot is the total amount of black walnut syrup that we got. Okay, and so I'm going to boil that down throughout the day today. I'm not sure how long it'll take exactly, but I'll get that started. You can see at this point, it's still basically clear. Again, what's in that liquid right there is a lot of sucrose. You're just like table sugar. And some amino acids and things like that. Some other chemical compounds that derive from the tree that will contribute to the flavor, in the overall feel of the syrup. This is a pot that has actually sugar maple syrup in it that has been cooking as well, just to show you that this is just part way through. And it's just showing you how what it looks like after the caramelization process has started. Okay, so as you cook sap down into syrup, you do a number of things. Okay, you evaporate the water, so you concentrate the sap to make it sweeter. But in addition to doing that, there are chemical reactions occurring in that sap, including caramelization of the sugars, okay, which is simply a physical process that occurs at around 320 degrees Fahrenheit. Sugars turn brown, okay, you caramelize sugars. But some of that browning reaction you see there is due to something called the Maillard reaction, okay, which is a chemical reaction that involves more amino acids, okay, basically, being converted into and combined in various ways, a very complicated process, but it leads to a browning coloration developing, as well as a change in the flavor profile. All right, and so the Maillard reaction is a really common reaction that we seek in cooking quite a bit. Anytime we brown any food, even in a skillet, when you brown meat, that process of browning is partly due to the Maillard reaction happening. Okay, so that's also what's going on when you cook syrup down. Ultimately, syrup is considered syrup when it hits about 66% sugar by volume. Again, this sap starts out, the sugar maple sap starts out around, say, 4% sugar by volume. And the black walnut is probably more in the order of 2. All right, so it's a much lower concentration of sugar than the sugar maple sap. So you have to get rid of more liquid, basically, to get it down into what you could call syrup. One difference between black walnut sap and sugar maple sap is that black walnut sap has a lot of pectin in it. So that's a jelly-like substance that you use in say jelly making, that kind of thing. We will have to deal with that toward the end, basically just simply by filtering the syrup in the end through a coffee filter and catching that pectin so it doesn't end up in our final product. People call that pectin mixture there black walnut jelly, and I'll taste it at the end to see how it tastes or what it might have been used for, but I'm not yet sure what that's gonna look like and how that's gonna go. So my whole plan today is to boil this black walnut sap down into syrup, go through that process of removing the pectin and taking a look at the end product and tasting it. I'll continue to boil this pot of sugar maple syrup as well, sap into syrup, although my intention will be to then get outside in the next day or two to go through a DIY process of evaporating sap in a little, homemade sugar shack. Okay. All right. So I'm basically at this point just going to turn on these burners and let this go. So here's a check-in on this boiling process for this black walnut syrup. And I've boiled down probably about 2/3 of the volume I had in this pot to start this morning. It's been boiling for a couple hours, and it is beginning to brown. There's a little bit of brownness there, not much. It's still pretty clear. I'm going to taste it. Oh, okay. So it's getting sweeter, quite a bit sweeter. And wow, it's good. It is delicious. It has a different taste than maple syrup for sure. It's not clearly what you think of as black walnut right now. It's not very strong, but it has a kind of a fruity flavor to it. And I'm excited to see what this end product's going to be like because it's good. Wow. So I'm going to boil that down. I'll probably only, frankly, get 8 to 10 ounces of syrup out of this, 8 probably. And it's probably going to be pretty dark brown from the pictures and video I've seen of people making black walnut syrup. A lot browner, darker brown, say, than this maple syrup over here that's in development. So I'll give it another hour probably, and I'll check back again. So I've reached the end of the boiling process for this black walnut syrup. And I boiled down what was probably about 1.5 gallons or so of sap to basically just a thin layer in the bottom of this pot. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just filter this through, there's actually not much debris. I don't see a lot of the pectin buildup like I was expecting. But I guess I will filter it and then do a little taste test of it on camera for you. Okay, so I'm just going to pass this through just a little container here with paper towel. Move that out of my way. Okay. Yeah, I don't see much debris. It's always good to filter your syrup at the end. There will be what can be called maple sugar at granules at the end. There can be nitric acid crystals. There could be all kinds of stuff. Debris if you do the process outside where you've cooked it over a fire. There can be ashes. There can be all kinds of sorts of stuff that you want to filter out in the end. And so I have so little syrup here, I'm afraid I'm going to lose a little bit of that to my filter paper, which is a paper towel, nothing but a paper towel. But we'll see what we get, and then we'll do a little taste test. on much larger scale boils with black walnut syrup, at this step, there would essentially be a kind of a mass of pectin at the end, from what I've seen. I see a little bit of that coating the filter here, not a whole lot. Okay, I didn't boil down a very large volume, but it is kind of coating this paper towel, I can see, with a basically a jelly-like, pectin coating. So it's getting very thick. Okay, so I think that's complete. And again, that thick jelly-like substance is largely pectin. Black walnut has more of that, a lot more of that than sugar maple. So there it is. Again, pectin is used in cooking a lot, right? To thicken things, to make jelly, to thicken up fruit jellies and things like that. So theoretically, that stuff could be harvested and utilized. Here we are in my tasting room, which this place has become, I guess, for coffee and today syrups. Maybe in the future it will be bourbons and good beer, but we'll see. Okay, so what I have here is 2 syrups. My right hand is traditional sugar maple syrup, and in my left hand is the black walnut syrup that I just made. Okay, this one was made previously, but it still works. Okay, so I just want to compare and contrast these first of all. If the black walnut syrup is probably not boiled down as far as it could be to reach the percentage sugar concentration that you typically expect in a syrup. But I was running out of liquid. Okay, so I boiled down about 1.5 gallons of sap, black walnut sap, to make that much syrup, and it's nice and sweet. I tested it already. But it could probably go a little bit more, be boiled a little bit more, actually, to probably half the volume that you see right there. And this maple syrup is presumably at the typical percentage sugar concentration you expect in maple syrup, which is about 66% sugar by volume, okay, in here. Okay, now you can see they both have that nice brown, amber, dark brown coloration. Right now, the sugar maple to me has a more reddish cast to it, reddish brown. And the walnut syrup has more of a black walnut kind of color, dark brown, like you'd see in a walnut stain for a deck or something like that, okay, or furniture. So they are a little bit different in their color, outside of the fact that they are both browned. Okay, they're both browned because sugar's been caramelized in there, as well as the altered composition and polymerization of amino acids and carbohydrates and things we know as the Maillard reaction. So the clarity otherwise is very similar. One of these is a little cooler than the other. So, but what I'll do is take a taste of these two things and tell you what I think. All right. So I forgot to mention that you can taste olive oils, good olive oils like this too, which is something else I love. So I'm going to just do the sugar maple. This is familiar to me, but just to do it so I can directly compare the two. Delicious. Has all the familiar sugar maple syrup flavor that you'd expect. It's very sweet. Has a what we've all come to know as maple flavor. I don't know what else to say about it. Okay, so let me just rinse my palate for a second, since I'm going to be a pro at this. And then I'm going to try the black walnut syrup. And see how it compares. So here we go. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I had no idea until this year that you really could make syrup out of black walnuts. And now I'm kicking myself for not knowing earlier. This is absolutely delicious. It has some similar characteristics of sugar maple syrup, but it's mostly different. It has this oddly fruity flavor to it, kind of a tropical fruity flavor to it. The sugary aspect of it is about the same. The sweetness is about the same as the sugar maple syrup, but the flavor is just fantastic. And I'm a huge pure sugar maple syrup fan, but I've got to say, this is better. This black walnut syrup is better. It's too bad it takes so much work and energy to produce the same volume of syrup between the two. Hey, I love sugar maple syrup. It's great. But boy, I'm impressed. This is amazing. So black walnut syrup, 2 thumbs up from me, from the Naturalist. There you go. So wow, I'm going to taste this again. Wow, that's amazing. It's really amazing. All right, so this will inspire me now in the future to definitely tap more black walnuts and just recognize that you have to boil more sap to get the same amount of syrup. But wow, that's good stuff. Okay, so with that, I guess I'll part ways and enjoy the rest of my syrups here. I probably won't just drink the 2 of these things. I'll have to make some pancakes, I guess. But I just want to sign off by saying, wow, I'm really glad that we tapped a black walnut tree this year. And I will be doing more of that in the future. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Naturalist. And I'll be back again next time. See you later.